Since we'll be living here starting today, could you please move out? We'll also pay the $473 monthly loan. Now that my daughter is coming, we no longer need you. Okay. Well, then please take care of everything from now on. Even though we had supported our in-laws so much, they easily shifted their trust to the younger sister. As I reached the entrance, packing my belongings, I told them something very important. By the way, it seems there's a misunderstanding, but the monthly loan repayment is... As I said that, their faces turned pale in shock. My name is Emily, a 35-year-old office worker. I've been married to Tom for 3 years. We met through a mutual friend who believed we'd be perfect for each other. This friend's intuition was spot on. We were drawn to each other from our first conversation. Tom also felt the same, and we began dating. We continued dating smoothly, and around 2 years later, he proposed to me. I was so happy as I loved him deeply. Both our families agreed to our marriage. We married and had a wonderful wedding attended by many. We then went on a honeymoon and began our life together as a married couple. We both have worked, and so we've shared household chores. Tom had lived alone for a long time and could cook, which was a huge help. Even when I was late from work, Tom helped me and started cooking so we could have dinner soon after. We cooperated in all household tasks, and life feels peaceful and stress-free. We have been grateful for each other's company. In the blink of an eye, 3 years passed, and our bond remains as strong as when we were newlyweds. However, a significant event occurred. Tom's father fell ill suddenly, and we rushed to the hospital. Dad, are you okay? Tom, Emily, thank you for coming. Sorry for causing you concern. It seems I overexerted myself. He had been a workaholic, often working long hours. As he aged, the stress of those years took a toll on him. For now, I'll undergo some tests and wait for the results. I see. Tom and I were anxious, but more than that, my mother-in-law was quite upset. For the mother-in-law, who had always supported her husband as a housewife, it was understandable that she was upset when her partner, the mainstay of the family, was suddenly in mortal danger. Mother-in-law, are you alright? Yes, somehow. We cared deeply for both of them. We began visiting them more frequently, trying to be as supportive as possible. After a week, the father-in-law's test results came out. Although he was released from the hospital, there were concerns about a recurrence. Realizing that they might not handle another emergency, Tom proposed something. Hey, what if we live together with my parents? It was an expected proposal. If my parents were in the same situation, I'd want to live with them too. Of course, I'm okay with that. Let's discuss it with them right away. Thank you, Emily. We quickly proposed the idea to our in-laws. Live together? Won't it be a bother? It's not a bother at all. Emily and I are worried about both of you. Thank you, both of you. Our in-laws, teary-eyed, gratefully accepted. They must have been quite anxious. We promptly moved in with them. The mother-in-law, knowing that both of us worked, took the lead in the household chores. Thanks to her, we could focus on our jobs. The father-in-law retired early and spent his days resting at home which improved his health. We all got along wonderfully, without any issues, and life was joyous. However, our in-laws made a certain proposal. I've been thinking about this for a while. How would you feel about building a new two-family house? Huh? It's a bit small for 4 adults to live in this house. And if Tom and Emily have children in the future, it'll be even smaller. Considering the future, I've been thinking of building a bigger house where we can live comfortably for the rest of our lives. However, it's not something we can afford with just my savings. We'll need to discuss and decide together. Tom and I were surprised by the proposal, but we thought it wasn't a bad idea. While the current in-laws' house isn't too small, it's not particularly spacious or comfortable either. Living here long-term might lead to stress building up between us. Perhaps buying a new house where everyone can live comfortably is a good idea. After discussing with Tom for a while, we decided to go along with the father-in-law's proposal. Subsequently, the 4 of us went to real estate agencies to look at various properties. We considered making it barrier-free for the in-laws and ensuring there are plenty of rooms if children come along. Ideally, it should be in a safe area, close to both a hospital and a train station, and have easy access to grocery stores. Given everyone's requirements, it seemed like it might be pricey. However, if we're going to live here for the rest of our lives, we don't want to compromise too much. Every family member felt the same way. So, with determination, we decided to build our dream house even if it cost a lot. After some time, our new home was finally completed. The exterior and interior were both new and beautiful, and it lifted our spirits just looking at it. This is really amazing. I can't be sick anymore. I want to stay healthy and live here for as long as possible. The in-laws seemed very pleased, and my husband and I were equally excited. This is the house that will be with us for our entire lives. When we have kids, I want to play catch in the garden and have barbecues. That sounds great. Let's make lots of family memories here. We were overflowing with excitement and joy. Living in the house turned out to be truly comfortable, and it felt like the pinnacle of happiness. Being in a comfortable home made me even more enthusiastic about my work. Subsequently, my work went very smoothly. Both my public and private lives were fulfilling, and I genuinely felt grateful for buying this house. The months passed in the blink of an eye. 2 years had passed in this house. We continued to have a good relationship with in-laws as always. We believed that the days ahead would be filled with happiness. However, amidst this blissful life in our new home, something unexpected happened. It was when the sister-in-law and her husband visited our new house. Wow, this really is a nice house. It's not fair that only you guys get to live here. What are you talking about? We discussed and decided to buy this house with our parents. But I can't help but feel envious when we are still living in a cheap renter. It feels like you're living beyond your means. The sister-in-law often visited our house during holidays and always expressed her envy. Every time, she would accuse us of being unfair. We've been paying the mortgage for this house, and it's quite a hefty amount every month. We're living within our means, earning enough to pay for this house, so there's no reason for her to complain. If we were to live here with the in-laws, it would be so much fun, don't you think? What? Can you even afford the mortgage for this house? My husband and I exchanged a glance. The sister-in-law probably just blurted out without giving it much thought. However, her careless words started to move my in-laws' hearts. It would be lovely if Kana could move and live here together. Yes, it would liven things up. Hey, what are you two talking about? Haven't we been living together all this while? Oh, come on, I was just saying. Exactly. There's no need to panic, right? Ha ha ha. While the in-laws tried to brush it off, it was evident that they were enticed by the idea of living with the sister-in-law. The in-laws seemed to have a particular affection for her, even more so than for Tom. She is a beauty with delicate features and looks like a doll during her childhood. She is also 4 years younger than Tom and was born when the in-laws were older, making them dote on her even more. This pampering led her to become quite spoiled, and Tom had to deal with her demanding nature. Having heard all this from Tom, I was always wary of my sister-in-law. For a while after we got married, Tom and I were both caught off guard because she didn't seem to be giving us any trouble. However, recently, she has been increasingly eyeing our new house. It seems she frequently visits the house during the day when you're at work. Oh, Emily, you're back? Then I'll be leaving now. Huh? I wish you'd stay a bit longer. But Tom and Emily might find it inconvenient. I don't think it's a nuisance. You might say that, but it's evident in your eyes and behavior. Unwanted guests should leave quickly. See you, Mom and Dad. Kana. When the sister-in-law left, the in-laws were visibly upset. They looked as if they wished she stayed longer. Even though they didn't voice their feelings, their faces and attitudes spoke volumes. I felt out of place and usually stayed in my room after work. When Tom came home, we'd head to the living room for dinner. The atmosphere around the dinner table got more and more tense, and there were longer silences. Tom noticed the atmosphere and seemed to realize that the sister-in-law was the cause. Around the time our relationship with the in-laws started to deteriorate, the sister-in-law finally made her move. One holiday, Tom and I went shopping in the morning. When we returned, there were unfamiliar shoes at the entrance. We exchanged glances, wondering if Mother-in-law then approached us from the living room. You're finally back. We need to talk. The mother-in-law's tone was different than usual. When we entered the living room, the sister-in-law and her husband were there. Ah, you're finally here. Kana, what's going on? From today, we'll be living here, so please leave. What? Tom and I were taken aback by her sudden declaration. What is she thinking, moving in today? Hold on, it's ridiculous to say that all of a sudden. It's not sudden. We've discussed this with Mom and Dad for a long time. Is it true? You discussed this with them? Tom and I knew the in-laws were swayed by the sister-in-law's words, but had no idea things had progressed this far. Kana and her husband said they'll take care of us from now on. I'll do the housework and even care for you when needed. Please rely on us, Mom and Dad. If our daughter is here, we don't need you anymore. A daughter-in-law who doesn't do housework or have children is no match for Kana. What? I was deeply hurt by their words. Seeing my shocked face, the sister-in-law smirked. We'll pay the $473 monthly loan, okay? Huh? $473? It's a great deal to live in such a nice house for that. Tom and I were dumbfounded. The in-laws were already planning to kick us out. After such treatment, we couldn't continue living there. Is that so? But we can't leave immediately. Could you give us at least a week? We need to find a new place. Fine. You're looking forward to living with Kana and her husband from today. The in-laws looked disappointed. The sister-in-law and her husband was extremely happy that we decided to leave. Calm down, Mom and Dad. The house isn't going anywhere. I'm looking forward to a week from now. The in-laws and sister-in-law's family were thrilled to drive us out. Did Tom and I seriously consider co-living for such people? We quickly arranged to view rental properties and moved out within a week, and the day to leave our home arrived. Please take care of everything from now on. Don't ever get involved with us or come to this house again. Their words were harsh. We had supported the in-laws so much, and they switched allegiance so easily. Now we can finally live with Mom and Dad in this house. Living comfortably in this house with Kana is like a dream. We got rid of the nuisance after all. Our in-laws and sister-in-law kept inserting us until the last minute we were leaving. Little did they know they would face hell after this. Well, it's none of our business anymore. As I gathered our belongings and approached the entrance, I shared an important piece of information. Oh, by the way, it seems there's a misunderstanding about the monthly mortgage payment. It's $1,825 every month, okay? Make sure you understand that. What? At my words, their faces turned pale all at once. Hold on a second. Isn't the loan just $473 a month? You misunderstood, didn't you? This house is under our father's name, so the loan is contractually agreed to be paid off through a debit from Dad's account. Emily and I were planning to live in this house for the rest of our lives, so we told him he wouldn't have to pay. We were bearing all the costs. So I was transferring $473 and Emily was transferring $1,352 to our father's account every month. I guess Father only remembered how much Tom puts in Father's account each month. Moreover, we split the living expenses equally. Our parents probably never thoroughly checked the costs and assumed it wasn't a significant amount. What? No way! We can't pay $1,825 a month! We can't even cover the living expenses on top of that. How can Emily afford to contribute so much? I don't know how you perceive me, but I'm a department head at a major corporation. I earn quite a lot. What? Emily earns much more than I do. It seemed the in-laws were unaware of this, as they looked shocked. Well, we're decided to cut ties with you, so it's up to you to support our parents from now on. No way! Emily, Tom, wait! We were wrong. Let's live peacefully together like before, okay? What? Mom and Dad, are you planning to abandon us? You guys can't repay the loan, can you? If that's the case, shouldn't you live with those who can? That's not fair. Dad told me the loan was only about $473. That's why we came here. We've already canceled our previous house. That's not my problem. Isn't this mess because you wanted to move in with us in the first place? Right, your husband earns very little, doesn't he? But you always said I was more important than Tom and pampered me. When our livelihood is at stake, all of that doesn't matter. The quarrel between the in-laws and the sister-in-law was unbearable to watch. Well, we're leaving. Wait! Regardless of what you say, we'll never associate with you again. With that, Tom and I left the house and moved into our rented room. Despite the numerous messages from the in-laws, we ignored them all. According to our neighbors, the in-laws and the sister-in-law's family had no choice but to live together. However, they couldn't pay the loan and eventually had to let go of the house. When they sold the house, a considerable debt remained. Even after using the father-in-law's early retirement benefits for repayment, they still fell short. Currently, they live in a cheap small apartment. All three work full-time part-time jobs to repay their debt. Apparently, the sister-in-law's husband didn't want the burden to fall on him, so he ran away. If only the in-laws continued living peacefully with us, they wouldn't have faced these hardships. But again, it's none of our concern now. On the other hand, Tom and I found our rented apartment much cozier than anticipated. We plan to stay here for a while and save money. We live happily and our savings grow at an incredible rate. We believe it's essential to save as much as we can for the future. Still, we enjoy our lives with the occasional luxury. We aim for a happy life together in the years to come. What's that smell? Even through the mask, I could sense the overpowering stench and shut the front door immediately. Just opening the door for a few seconds caused a burning sensation in my eyes. The strong smell was like rotting decay. Never did I imagine it would come from my own house. My name is Emily. I'm a working housewife in my early 30s. I had been living in the countryside with my husband John, whom I married the year before last. Though our marriage started out of love, things haven't been going well for the past 6 months. The reason? Our life in the countryside. Half a year ago, John got excited watching a TV show about life in the countryside and suggested we leave the concrete jungle of the city and move to the suburbs. Maybe it's good for retirement. Not just for retirement, right now. John is easily influenced by TV and magazines. He probably saw only the good parts of living in the countryside and got carried away. But it wasn't practical. While my family home is in the countryside, John's family lives in the city. They are close to the downtown area, very convenient. So convenient, in fact, that John doesn't even have a driver's license. He lived with his parents until our marriage, and even now he barely does any household chores. If I work late, he just eats takeout food for dinner. My job allows me to work from home, but John would probably have to quit his. I was sure this whole idea was a no-go, but the next day, John quit his job. After a big fight, and with support from John's parents, we decided to live in a rural area in the neighboring state. John initially wanted to buy and renovate an old house, but I persuaded him to rent a single-story house that was already refurbished. It was old, but renovated to be very user-friendly, and we got it at a very reasonable price due to the kindness of the landlord. Our rural life, initiated by John's impulsiveness, was not smooth sailing. John wasn't securing any job and didn't seem to be seriously job hunting. All the troublesome tasks like moving preparations and city hall paperwork were left to me. And once we started living there, John began to complain about everything. The convenience store is far, there are no bars, shops close early, there are no cute girls around, just old people and a ton of bugs. He knew all this from the start. John was disgusted by the number of bugs in the countryside and would freak out at the sight of unfamiliar insects. Without a job and unwilling to go outside because of the bugs, he began to stay home all the time. He wanted comfort, so he'd leave the air conditioner and lights on constantly. When it was cold, he'd crank up the AC instead of wearing a jacket. Seeing him in a t-shirt eating ice cream with the AC at 30 degrees made me doubt my eyes. I couldn't understand what he was thinking. I decided to work from home, and as we spent more time together, I started to see his lazy and sloppy side. I tried to overlook his behavior, sacrificing my sleep to juggle both work and house chores. Overdoing things led to intense pain, and I was rushed to the hospital last month. I was diagnosed with acute pancreatitis and had to be hospitalized for a month. John was shocked by my sudden hospitalization and came rushing to the hospital. However, once he realized it wasn't life-threatening, but would require a long treatment, he quickly left. During my hospital stay, we communicated via smartphone, but always ended up fighting. I blamed him for all the stress, sleep deprivation, and the heavy burden of our lifestyle. A week before my discharge, he started ignoring all my messages and calls, so I stopped reaching out too. And today, without telling him, I got discharged, took a taxi, and returned home. I've only lived here a few months, but seeing the house again was comforting. I'm originally from the countryside, so it's not that I dislike rural living. I had made up my mind to have a proper talk with John. It was when I reached the doorknob of the house. I wondered if you went on a trip. I noticed envelopes and newspapers overflowing from the mailbox piled up in front of the house. It looked like the house had been vacant for a long time. Considering he's bad at housekeeping, maybe he went back to his parents' place? Feeling suddenly anxious, I decided to call John. The call went straight to voicemail. I sighed and unlocked the door. "I'm home." Out of habit, I spoke out loud and peeked inside. The lights were off, but it was dim. "John, are you home?" I thought he was out, but somehow the room felt warm. That's when I realized, what is that smell? Even through my mask, I could detect a strong, pungent odor, and instinctively, I closed the front door. Despite only opening the door for a few seconds, my eyes stung. It wasn't just a simple stink. An intense smell of decay, so strong it felt like it could rip my nose off. I never imagined that this smell could come from my own house. Had something happened to John leading to him not contacting me? As I pondered the cause of the smell, I received a call from John. I was so surprised that my heart nearly jumped out of my chest, but I felt relieved to know he was alive. "John, where are you?" I asked nervously, to which he replied in a carefree voice, "Me? I'm at home watching a comedy show on TV." I strained my ears and heard the sound of the television in the background. This home? It can't be. But then, whose? In an instant, my love for John vanished. "Listen, I was discharged from the hospital today. I'm in front of our house." When I told him this in a low voice, John was visibly shaken. "What? Huh?" I heard the sounds of him moving around frantically. Then, the sound of a door unlocking. He probably went out to check the front. "Don't lie, you're not here," John said with a triumphant tone. "Oh, how odd. Isn't this your house? I'm standing in front of the house you said you rented because you wanted to live in the countryside." "John, whose house are you at?" Well, that... Emily, you tricked me." John stammered and became defensive. "I'm at my parents' place. There's no one to do housework since you're not around." "That's a lie. If he was at his in-laws, he wouldn't be panicking like this." "Really? Actually, I'm in front of your parents' house right now." "It's strange that I can't see you even though you said you went outside." "Oh, should I talk to your mother instead?" "Damn, you knew all along, didn't you? You know I'm not at my parents' place," John yelled in frustration. In the background, I heard a woman's voice asking, "Hey, who is it?" "Oh, so you were cheating on me while I was hospitalized." "It's not cheating. She's my ex, so it doesn't count, right?" "I don't understand your stupid rule. Anyway, I'm calling the police. Come to your countryside house, not your fling's house," I said and hung up. I never imagined John would be living with his ex and cheating on me. Although I was disappointed, it didn't hurt as much as I thought. If the source of the rotting smell isn't John, what is causing this smell? The smell isn't just from rotting organic waste. There's no doubt that this is an abnormal situation. I immediately reported it to the police. After a while, a police car arrived with its siren on. I thought only one would come, but more and more police cars started to arrive. In the end, 5 police cars came, and many officers got out, indicating a situation more serious than I imagined. The faces of the police officers turned green as soon as they smelled the odor. "It's a decomposing smell." After briefly stating that, he said, "We might need backup," and started to communicate over the radio. Apart from regular police cars, some special police vehicles arrived, the names of which I didn't recognize. The neighbors were watching from a distance after hearing the commotion. The landlord also rushed over. Only John hasn't come yet. I waited in the police car with the elderly landlord while the officers wearing special protective gear went to check the situation inside. I think they were inside for just a few minutes. One of the returning officers explained the situation to me. "It's a raccoon dog. there was a dead raccoon inside. Is that the raccoon that was on the news a while ago? I knew the name, but I wasn't quite sure what it was. The landlord seemed to understand immediately and nodded in acknowledgement. A raccoon has a white face and is a little bigger than a cat. It's a slender animal that looks like a small bear. They are good climbers and can enter homes through small gaps. Especially abandoned houses are their favorite targets. The landlord explained it in a way that was easy to understand. It's common for raccoons to enter abandoned houses. However, it's rare to find one dead. That's why it's safer to have someone live in the house, even if the rent is low. It's better than leaving it empty. I realized that this was one of the reasons that the landlord had given me such a good deal on the rent. This house is close to the mountains, so bugs and wild animals are attracted to it. We had an issue with a raccoon entering this house before. Even with thorough cleaning, some smell and feces might remain, but before, it didn't enter the main living area. The officer nodded in agreement with the landlord's statement. There's a hole in the living room ceiling. It looks like the raccoon entered through there. Do you have any idea how it happened? John, my husband, wanted to install ambient lighting there. We had planned to get it professionally fixed, but we've been busy and it's been left like that. While explaining to the police officer, I felt guilty. Shortly after moving in, John wanted to install stylish ambient lighting in the ceiling. But he wasn't very handy and messed it up. We had planned to call a professional to fix it, but a gap of about 15 centimeters was left. The police concluded from the evidence. It seems your husband left the air conditioner on, turned off only the lights, and went out shortly after you were hospitalized. The raccoon entered the vacant house through the ceiling hole your husband made. It seemed to have lived for a while, ransacking the house, leaving feces and urine everywhere, and eating food like bread and vegetables. It eventually died, curled up under a blanket. It might have been weak or old, and even in the cold winter, it decayed due to the warmth of the air conditioner. Considering the intensity of the decay smell and the presence of flies and maggots, it seemed the animal had been dead for over 10 days. The mere explanation made my skin crawl. For a strong smell like this, you'll need a specialist cleaning service. They'll handle the corpse disposal, cleaning, and disinfection. I'll arrange it for you. The landlord immediately called a cleaning service he had used before for another property. I'm sorry, but you'll have to cover the costs. It's not covered by insurance. Our tenancy liability insurance only covered damages like fires or leaks, so this incident wouldn't be covered. It's a good thing the source of the smell wasn't a human. But I felt disheartened hearing the landlord's murmured comment about a previous ceiling repair costing $3,000. Finally, the cause of it all, John arrived. Hey, what the hell happened? Did you cause this chaos because I cheated on you? That's not the case. John looked visibly scared by the intense atmosphere, but his misconception was infuriating. Is this the husband you live with? I nodded in response to the police officer. Everyone was glaring coldly at John since they had heard the entire story from the police officers and the landlord. You sure took your time getting here. Don't you feel sorry for your wife who's fallen ill because of the unfamiliar country life all for you? The landlord made a sarcastic remark to John. Wait, landlord? Why are you here and why am I the one being scolded? It's just a little fling, no big deal. More importantly, why are so many police officers here? Please leave. Everyone was astonished by John's brazen response. I tried to stop the landlord from lecturing John. I've reached my limit living with you. Let's get a divorce. Upon hearing my firm words, John panicked. Divorce? I'm unemployed. I need you to support me. A man who not only doesn't apologize for cheating, but also openly admits to being a freeloader is not what I need. Why don't you seek help from your ex? She doesn't earn much from her part-time job and she's always nagging me to work or do housework if I plan to stay with her all the time. Aren't you stupid? It's only natural to contribute if you're living together. I was foolish for trying too hard all by myself till now. Your only reason for not wanting a divorce is my money, isn't it? So what? Of course, I love money the most. Among all of my women, you earn the most. You love me, so what's the problem? What's wrong with you working and me enjoying? Are you serious? I was dumbfounded by his extreme selfishness. My desire for a divorce grew stronger. Any healthy adult should work, the police officer murmured. The landlord joked. Maybe his rotten nature is what attracted that raccoon. I can't help but laugh. It wasn't funny, but I felt relieved. John, turn up the air conditioner. I gave up talking to John and pointed to the house entrance. There's no point in talking anymore. Let's teach him a lesson. Why so sudden? You left them on when you went out, didn't you? Turn them off. We'll talk after. I smiled and was assertive. The police officers made way for John. Ah! A few seconds later, we heard John scream. Box! Box! John crawled out trembling and on the verge of tears. So, did you turn off the air conditioner? Of course I couldn't. How can I touch that? The remote has so many maggots on it. Yuck. Everyone watched John's frantic reactions with cold eyes. John, this is the result of your actions. I was worried when I thought the source of the rotting smell might be you. But now, I can't stand you as much as that raccoon. Let's get a lawyer and split up without any drama. Oh, and I'll be claiming alimony and you'll also pay for the cleaning fee. Upon hearing my words, the landlord and the police officers spontaneously applauded. Are you serious? Comparing me to that thing, didn't you love me? Let me ask you this. If I arbitrarily quit my job because I wanted to live in the countryside, left all the troublesome procedures to you, lazed around and played every day, didn't even visit you when you were hospitalized due to illness, and cheated on you, would you still love me? I can't. Emily said with a bright smile. It seems that John finally realized she was serious. He collapsed to his knees in defeat. Later on, the landlord introduced Emily to a lawyer he knew, allowing her to claim compensation from both John and his ex-girlfriend with whom he had an affair. However, John was jobless. When she informed her in-laws about the divorce and the circumstances leading up to it, they intervened and covered the compensation and other costs. Upon hearing from the lawyer, John begrudgingly paid the alimony, and it seems he was dumped by his affair partner as a result. And so, Emily was able to divorce John without any lingering ties. She quit her rural life, moved to a moderately urban area, and is now enjoying a stress-free life.
How much inheritance did you receive?
Huh? On the night of my father's funeral, my husband asked me.
I heard your father $30 million in inheritance. How much did you inherit?
I felt a sinking feeling from deep within and lied on the spot. I got nothing. It seems that only my mother and sister inherited everything. Hearing this, my husband smiled broadly.
I knew it. Everyone in your family considered you incompetent. I'm glad I was right.
Huh?
I'm divorcing you. I can't stand being with a dinks like you. I've already found someone else, so get out of my life.
At my husband's behest, I signed the divorce papers. Although everyone laughed at how pitiful I seemed, they didn't realize how happy his betrayal made me. They don't know yet. My name is Emily. I have a younger sister named Catherine in our family of 4. But we never got along since childhood. Our mother always favored Catherine, leaving me feeling lonely. My only ally, my father, was always busy with work. Even in adulthood, nothing changed. I couldn't go to college due to financial reasons, yet I later found out Catherine was attending a private university.
Catherine is brilliant. It would be a waste not to let her go to college. You're not that smart, Emily, so it would be pointless for you. Now that you're working, you should contribute to the household and also pay for Catherine's tuition. You're the older sister after all.
My mother stated this as if it were the most natural things in the world. Although I had put up with so much unfairness, they were the only ones I can depend on. Catherine, seeing my reaction, responded with disdain. It's your fault for being incompetent, right? You're less attractive and your grades are lower than mine. At least work hard. If you can't even do that, you're truly worthless. I grew wary of my family environment and moved out when I got a job. Living alone was actually liberating, especially since I was used to doing all the chores at home. Initially, my father sent me some money, but after about 6 months, it stopped. Instead, I received a letter from my mother.
It seems your father has been sending you money without me knowing. Since you haven't paid any money to the household or for Catherine's tuition, you have no right to accept it. I'll send you a bill for the exact amount. Make sure to pay it back. Stop being a thief.
My always disdainful mother sent me a meticulously calculated bill, including additional charges for emotional damages. I paid the amount, wanting to avoid further confrontation, and discreetly moved to another apartment. A few years later, I met John at work and decided to marry him. I returned to my family home to announce my engagement. To my surprise, my hard-working father looked frail and elderly. It seems he has trouble standing up.
Oh, you're back. I wonder what the ungrateful daughter who doesn't send any money home wants now.
My mother was as harsh as ever. When I asked about my father, she scoffed and gave a disdainful laugh.
Your father hurt his back last year and can't work anymore. He's such a nuisance being home all the time and can barely move. Just as useless as you, Emily.
John, shocked by my mother's behavior, was then dazzled by Catherine when she entered the room.
Are you Emily's sister? You are very beautiful. I can't believe you were sisters with Emily.
Emily's sister had become more self-centered since entering college, and now, as an adult, she had flamboyant clothing and hair, despite being of age to have already graduated. She seems to still be a student, indicating her study habits.
Is that man Emily's husband? He's quite handsome. They don't much at all. I feel so sorry for John.
In my view, Catherine was deliberately acting spoiled and flirty towards John. While that was unpleasant, seeing John happily accepting such behavior was much more painful. I don't plan to stay here for long. I'm going to marry John. I will cut ties with this house.
If you're going to cut ties, could you do it after you finish taking care of your father?
Mother was lethargically eating snacks.
Caring is necessary, but I don't want to do it. And I don't want to make Catherine do such hard work either. It would be pitiful to make her spend her precious college life on such trivial things, wouldn't it? So, Emily, you will care for your father. You'll get along with each other, both of you are incompetent.
Mother's words are infuriating. But for the sake of my father, I couldn't ignore them. Since that day, I had to frequently visit my parents' house to take care of my father. I realized that neither my mother nor sister were working. My sister didn't even have a part-time job, and my mother stayed at home even after my father collapsed. Nevertheless, they indulged in lavish dining out and shopping. Shockingly, the two of them were frivolously spending the savings from my immobilized father's bank book. My father knew about this, but kept silent.
Dad, the situation is getting worse. Why didn't you tell me sooner?
Even if I told Emily, they would never reflect on their actions. I didn't want to burden you more than I already have.
My father had always been working, but it was for our family. He was the only one in the family who truly loved me. I wanted to save him somehow. While I was thinking of ways, I received a call from the hospital where he was taken after collapsing. Before going to the hospital, I rushed to my parents' house, but my mother and sister were nonchalantly watching TV.
The hospital called. Dad collapsed. Why are you sitting around?
Collapsed? That's an exaggeration. He just fell in the hallway and hit his head. We had him taken by an ambulance. We will leave the rest to them.
We have to go to the hospital. I'm worried about Dad.
Be quiet. If he dies as he is, we'll get the insurance money, won't we? Why are you yelling at us?
I left the two of them and headed to the hospital, where my father was lying unconscious with various tubes connected to him.
I'm sorry. This must be my punishment. I failed as a father, unable to protect you from the family.
That doesn't matter. I love you, Dad. So please get well soon.
I was desperately holding my father's hand at his bedside, but he never squeezed my hand back. A week later, I was contacted by a lawyer who was entrusted with a will for my father. It mentioned inheriting my father's assets.
According to the will, all $30 million is to be inherited by Emily.
$30 million? Apparently, there was another bank book hidden from my mother where $30 million was stored. It was also written not to tell the other family members about it. My father must have considered my situation after inheriting. When I went to my parents' house to recover the hidden bank book, my mother and sister were waiting at the entrance hall, confronted me.
What are you doing here? Did you came to snoop around because our father is dead? How vulgar.
We will inherit everything in the house. The house, car, everything. So don't come here like a grave robber. I couldn't discuss the inheritance with the two unlistening individuals, and I found myself at my wit's end. Hold on a minute. I just came to retrieve a keepsake of our father. And if it's about inheritance, shouldn't I get the share too? Then, the mother conspicuously pulled out a certain document to show. It was another will. It stated that the father's inheritance would be split between the mother and sister. But the handwriting on it was clearly the sister's. It looked nothing like the father's neat writing. I was in disbelief looking at the distasteful characters. You want to say this is our father's will?
Think whatever you want. But this is the will. The entire family and even the neighbors are aware of its content. It's too late to overturn it now.
Using such an unbelievable story as a shield, my mother refused to let me step foot into our family home. Later that day, as I gave up and was heading home, John was waiting for me.
You went to your family home? You should have told me. I would have come with you. It's a waste. I wanted to meet your sister.
It's none of your business, John. I want to claim our father's inheritance, but they kicked me out.
Oh, how much is your father's inheritance worth?
I don't know the exact amount, but everything including the house and land was in our father's name. So the total would be significant.
I see. So how much is your share, Emily?
Well, about that, I stopped talking. I couldn't reveal the truth here. I felt an intuition like warning ringing in my brain. I didn't inherit anything. It's being split between my mother and sister. Upon hearing this, John suddenly brought out a divorce form from his room and thrust it at me.
I can't expected that. You're disliked by that family. Of course, they prefer your perfect sister. And no inheritance? How pathetic. Since there's nothing for me to gain, divorce me. I've been in touch with your sister lately, to be honest. You've been in the way of our love.
The divorce form already had John's signature. Without hesitation, I signed it. As I watched John gleefully head to the city office with the divorce papers, I had to suppress a smile. This might be the last time I'd see John so happy. My mother, my sister, all those who had made life difficult for my father and me. This was the beginning of their comeuppance. Later, I consulted with the lawyer who had my father's true will. We decided to visit my family home together. When I showed the two of them the real will, their smug faces turned pale, and they kept rereading it.
No, This can't be. We have another will here that clearly states the inheritance is for just the two of us. Let's get the handwriting verification then. If this is proven to be a deliberate forgery, fraud charges will apply. Are you prepared enough to be pressed charges?
My mother had no words to respond.
There are various things I've been informed about the deceased. Neglecting care when he was incapacitated, selling personal items without permission, and your sister being involved in frivolous affairs and gambling, even embezzling money from personal bank accounts. Due to these actions, you both have been excluded from the inheritance rights. If you further violate Emily's rights, we're prepared to take legal action.
By the time the lawyer finished speaking, both the mother and sister were stunned and had sunk to the floor. I seized the moment to retrieve my father's hidden bank book and decided to leave my family home for good. I was finally free. Later, I heard that John, oblivious to everything, proposed to my sister. My mother and sister, hiding the truth about the inheritance, quickly married John to use him for living expenses. They even spent lavishly, buying several luxury cars and quitting jobs, all of the hope on the inheritance. When things reached a point of no return, John realized something was up. When he finally discovered there was no inheritance, he hastily contacted me.
Emily, I was wrong. You were the only one for me. I want to start over.
I don't need you. Besides, I thought you're in love with Catherine, aren't you? You should treasure your wife. With that, I hung up. Just a few minutes before John's call, I had also received a call from my sister.
It's all your fault that my life is now a nightmare. The moment John and I got married, he quit his job and I went on a crazy shopping spree. I can't believe such a money-hungry man became my husband. You've even tarnished my family registry. What are you up to?
Catherine, you're just interested in money. I think you two make a perfect couple. Moreover, it seems you were close with John when he was still married to me. You should be happy your affair has come to fruition. I'll be requesting alimony for his infidelity later. From now on, let's communicate through a lawyer. I don't want to hear your voice again.
You're my sister. I can't believe you could do such a things to me.
Don't make me laugh. It was you who never treated me as family. I hung up on my sister. I blocked her number, ensuring she could never reach me again. I was finally free. Now, I've built a house using my father's inheritance and moved in. I started a new job as an office worker, and despite being busy, I'm enjoying my independent life. There are times I feel lonely, but I know I have a family. I'll be going out again today, Dad. It felt like the photo of my father, displayed in my house, gave me a gentle smile.
Now, I can do as I please. I'm the president after all. Tom, the younger brother of the former president, has newly assumed the role of president. Until now, he had been playing nice in front of the former president and the employees. However, as soon as he became the president, he began to show an arrogant attitude. Then, to everyone's shock, he began to dismiss valuable employees. My name is Robert, 38 years old. I work in the office of a local construction company. It's been 10 years since I started working in this company. It feels so long. I can still remember the time I joined like it was yesterday. Before coming here, I worked in the office of a general company in the city. I had an accident when I was in high school and became disabled in my leg. After graduating from university, I took a clerical job through a disability quota. I lived in company housing near the office, so I had no trouble commuting. One day, while I was living a steady life, my father had a stroke. He was left with paralysis on his left side and had difficulty speaking. I decided to resign and return to my parents' home. Although I can't provide much care, I wanted to be by my father's side. When I had my accident, my father encouraged me patiently. I was able to move forward, convinced by my father. However, there are not many jobs in the countryside where I live. When I was in trouble, my mother introduced me to William, who was a president of a nearby construction company. It was a small family-owned company. William's wife was in charge of the office work, but she had trouble with her eyesight and couldn't work. I want to entrust you with all the office work eventually. I've known you since you were little, and I can trust you, the William said. I had known William since I was a child because the company was close to my home. So that's how I started working in this company. Many people have been working here for a long time, and some of them knew about my accident. Robert, you don't have to carry heavy boxes. Yeah, let the muscles show off, William, carry them. Such conversations would fly around, enveloped in laughter. William, as well as the employees, are all kind-hearted people. When I returned home, I would help with my father's meals. It's tough, but I'm happy I can take care of my parents. My peaceful everyday life was about to be destroyed by the arrival of a certain individual. It was Tom, William's brother, who was about 10 years younger. One day, he suddenly came to the office looking for a job. It is said that Tom ran away from home when he was young because he didn't want to help with the family business. It's unclear what he had been doing until now, but he seems to be in trouble with debts. Tom has a wife and son. He's a good-for-nothing. But his family is like my own family. I can't abandon them. Saying this, William decided to employ Tom. At first, the employees were suspicious of Tom. They thought he must have a reason for returning home with debts. However, seeing him working seriously, everyone began to trust Tom. However, I just couldn't bring myself to like Tom. It must be nice being treated kindly just because your leg is bad. He would only say such nasty things when no one was around. I always ignored him because it was annoying. Maybe he got carried away thinking I was a pushover who wouldn't fight back. Maybe he intended to make me his stress outlet. After being pestered many times, I, becoming quite angry, said this. Then, why don't you have an accident? It's painful and tough. It's a shame that you don't understand other people's pain. Perhaps he wasn't expecting a retort. Tom was taken aback. You were just a clerk. Don't get cocky. He spat out those words and went somewhere. Tom is a man who changes his attitude depending on the person. I was thinking of consulting with William when suddenly he fell ill and collapsed. It might have been because he was visiting his clients in the heat. By the time he was taken to the hospital, he was unconscious and was diagnosed with severe heat stroke. Despite our prayers as employees, he never returned. He left a note just in case something happened. According to the note the president's wife found, it seems he wrote that if something happened, Tom would be his successor. It made sense for Tom to take over since William and his wife didn't have children. Thus, Tom became the new president. There were many complex procedures and documents, and I faced challenging days. Eventually, things settled down and Tom officially assumed the role of president. The employees were united in their desire to cherish the company that the former president had protected. However, Tom shattered that sentiment quite easily. From now on, you'll follow my orders. First, we'll reduce the number of employees to cut labor costs. One morning, he unexpectedly announced layoffs. Several employees were called into the president's office and seemed to be forced to resign voluntarily. His attitude changed the moment he became president. He's telling the older employees to quit. The veteran employees were furious. It was clear that if they left, the work wouldn't get done. Fearing the company would collapse, I headed to the president's office. It's not fair to fire veteran employees. If you're reducing labor costs, please explain why. I'm familiar with the company's financial situation due to my job. We may not be doing significantly, but we don't have significant debt either. I couldn't find any reason to fire so many employees. Reason: I just don't like them. I'm the brother of the former president, and yet they looked down on me. Perhaps he was holding a grudge because everyone was wary of him when he first joined the company. I was taken aback by such a childish argument. How can you let personal feelings destroy the company? Please think about everyone's lives too. I don't care. I used to be quiet because I owed money to my brother. Now, I can do whatever I want. I'm the president. Tom laughed loudly and left his office. Employees who had overheard our conversation in the corridor looked deeply regretful. If only I had consulted with someone sooner. On my way home from work, I vented to John. John was a high school classmate and lived nearby. We happened to meet again at a local pub and became drinking buddies. After learning business strategies in the city, John returned to our hometown and started his own company. He said he loved our hometown and wanted to give back to the community. His company was thriving, and he often mentioned needing more staff. You can't bring back those who've passed away, no matter how much you regret it. I've been telling you, come work with me. I'll think about it. I had previously turned down his offer because I liked my job. But now I'm considering resigning. I'm fed up with Tom's arrogance. The next day, an event occurred that solidified my decision to resign. When I arrived at work, the president approached my desk. I forgot to mention yesterday, but my son is joining the company. So, I need you to resign today. My son is only 18. Just having a young person around will rejuvenate the company. He laughed heartily. He intended to fire me and let his inexperienced son handle the administrative tasks. If I left today, I wouldn't even have time for a proper handover. The workload for payroll, attendance management, and accounting matters was immense. It wasn't realistic to entrust all of that to a newcomer. Do you plan to replace me with your son for administrative tasks? At least a month is required for a proper handover. Are you sure you want to put that burden on your son? At least a month is required for a proper handover. Are you sure you want to put that burden on your son? I tried to stay calm despite my anger. The employees listened intently to our conversation. I had already made up my mind to resign, but quitting without a handover would be irresponsible. It would not only inconvenience the employees but also jeopardize our credibility with clients. I pleaded as such, but the president was not moved. My son is excellent. He uses a computer every day, so office work is a breeze for him. There's a manual, right? Pack up your things and leave already. The president gestured as if to drive me away. This is a clear case of wrongful termination. If I were to sue, I would surely win. But I no longer wanted anything to do with Tom. Understood. As the president wishes, I will resign. You sure understanding. It'll be interesting to see where someone with your disability finds work next. Tom kept making spiteful remarks till the end. I calmly began my resignation preparations. Then, several employees expressed their desire to resign. Among them were veteran employees. There's no future following such a leader. A friend introduced me to another job, so I'm switching. Saying this, each wrote their resignation letter and handed it to the president, without any attempt to retain them. The president was reportedly rejoicing about saving on personnel costs and being able to hire cheaper workers. Hiring cheap workers will likely result in complaints from clients to do shoddy work. Tom is such a fool. Quitting was the best decision we ever made. All the employees echoed the same sentiment. There's no doubt that more will resign in the future. After completing the procedures, I called John. He was glad when I told him I wanted to help with his business. I then went home and informed my parents. My mother was worried about what I would do next, so I told her about John's offer. Do what you want to do, Robert, he said with difficulty. I made arrangements to meet with John later. John's company is nearby, so commuting is not an issue. I needed to learn new tasks, but my experience in administration made it easy. I quickly learned the job, much to John's surprise. Letting go of someone like yourself is such a waste. John's words were likely directed at Tom. Speaking of which, I wonder if Tom's son is doing okay? Tom did say he could use a computer. The manual I created spans dozens of pages. It would be difficult for one person to understand it all. As I was thinking this, a few days later, Tom came to my house. I noticed he had called my mobile, but I was at work and couldn't pick up. I had forgotten about the call and returned home to find Tom standing at the entrance. He's been waiting for you for a while. I thought about letting you know over the phone, but I was busy taking care of your father. The evening is busy with meals and helping with bathing. It's a bother having him here at this hour. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Please come back. Upon seeing me, Tom suddenly prostrated himself. My mother gasped at his action. It was him who told me to quit. Hasn't your son taken over the office work? Hearing my words, Tom hung his head in shame. He ran away. What did you say? His voice was so soft I couldn't hear. I asked again, and this time he shouted. I said he ran away. I have no idea where my son is. The president's shouting drew the attention of neighbors. I tried to calm him down, but Tom was unstoppable. He had excellent grades in school, so I thought office work would be easy for him. Yet, he claims he barely used the computer except for watching videos. He's shaming me in front of everyone. I can understand why one would want to run away from such a parent. Maybe his son had other dreams too. Did you ever talk to your son? Did you force him into the job? Tom's face turns bright red, as if Robert hit a nerve. Shut up. Just come back to the company. We can't even pay our employees, and we're receiving complaints from clients. He was begging just a moment ago, and now he's giving orders. There's no need to listen to the orders of a president of a company you've already quit. In that case, can you pay me 5 times my salary? Tom looks dumbfounded by my question. Why would I pay so much for a mere clerical position? He says, laughing. The president of the company I'm currently working for doesn't look down on clerical jobs. Plus, the pay is significantly higher. It helps that the company is profitable. It's a local travel agency with nursing care, and that's my new workplace. Upon hearing about the nursing care travel agency, Tom seems to have an idea. Anyone living in this area would know which company I'm talking about. The company John started has been growing its revenue over the past few years. They specialize in supporting trips for the elderly and those with disabilities. The company employs nurses, care workers, and physical therapists. They take every precaution to ensure those requiring care and their families can travel safely. The company was even featured on a local TV show as a rising star business. The media exposure was huge, and apparently, they received a flood of booking calls after the broadcast. John had to hire more qualified staff and phone operators to handle the surge. As they hired more employees, the clerical work also increased. Initially, John's wife and some part-timers were handling the office work, but it became too much for them. They had to hire more part-time clerks, so they were looking for an experienced office manager. My wife isn't really the type to manage people. I've always wanted to recruit Robert because of his experience and trustworthiness. When I told him I had quit my previous job, he immediately asked me to join his company. The salary he offered was much higher than what I used to earn. I was shocked and asked him if it was really that much. If anything, your previous salary was way too low. Even though it's a small company, you were handling all the office work alone, right? And you were earning just about the starting salary of a college graduate. You deserve more than that. I never really focused on my salary since I thought that's what rural companies pay. I live with my parents, and I don't have a wife or child to support. The costs of caregiving were covered by my father's retirement money. Even if there was a bonus, it was just a little pocket money. The bonus John offered was more than 5 times what I used to get. So, the conditions at my current company are really good. If you really want me back, you'll have to pay me 5 times what I was making before. Tom's shoulders trembled as he listened to my story. Stop joking. Who would pay you that much money? If you keep this up, I'll set fire to your company. Tom eventually started threatening me. He's so worked up, he doesn't even notice the crowd gathering around us. Isn't that the president of the construction company nearby? Did he just threaten to set something on fire? Should we call the police? The murmuring grows louder, and Tom finally realizes the situation he's in. Wait, I didn't mean. He's stumbling over his words, but the looks from the surrounding people are stern. It's a nuisance to the neighbors, so can you please leave? And remember, if you fire someone without notice, you need to pay a severance. You can't escape it by saying you can't handle the paperwork. The severance typically equates to 30 days of salary. When the former president fusses about not knowing where to transfer the money, I tell him I'll accept a direct payment. If you continue to be persistent, I'll sue for wrongful termination. Also, threatening to set a fire is a criminal threat. I will call the police next time. Tom apologized again and left in haste. One can only imagine the future of the former president and his company. I heard from an old colleague that almost all the employees had resigned. Only a few part-time workers that the former president had scrambled together remained. A company can't operate without administrative staff or workers. As expected, the company went bankrupt after a while. When I visited with the severance pay, he looked very thin and worn out. He was struggling with debt repayments and had been abandoned by his family. His son was missing, and his wife had asked for a divorce. He begged for help, but I just replied, "You brought this on yourself." He slowly walked away. I saw debt collectors outside the company several times. but the former president never showed up. There were rumors that he had run away in the night to avoid his debts. The debt collectors outside looked like unsavory loan sharks. It might be tough for Tom to escape them. As for me, I took my parents on a trip with John's permission. He offered me a special employee discount, so we enjoyed the service at a very good price. It felt like a dream to be able to travel with my family despite my disability. "Thank you, Robert," my father whispered in a frail voice. I gently held my father's wrinkled hand.